Hello everyone, you welcome to this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Babla Jonathan, and we begin with our top stories. 11 militants of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement CRM political party arrested in connection to the protest move of January 26, 2019 and detained in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, have been declared not guilty. The lawyers of the CRM political party are still defending others in front of judges at the Yaoundé Central Administrative Court of First Instance as we speak, and politicians criticize the humiliation characterizing procedures, notably within the framework of Operation Sparrowhawk, the fight against corruption in the Republic of Cameroon. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television. Latest news streaming in from Cameroon's political capital, Yaoundé, indicate that 11 militants of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement (CRM) political party of Professor Maurice Kamto, who were in detention in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, in connection to the protest move of January 26, 2019 against electoral hold of the crisis in the northwest region of the country and what has been described as illegal and unlawful exploitation of the country's resources, have been declared not guilty by the Yaoundé Central Administrative Court of First Instance. 26 others have been declared guilty of various charges linked to the protest move, notably violence and other charges. And of course, the case is still going on. The hearing of that case is going on as we speak at the Yaoundé Central Administrative Court, and the lawyers of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement are defending their clients and calling for their liberation, and of course the liberation of leaders of that political party, the national president Professor Maurice Kamto, and others who have been detained, and charges leveled against them including hostilities against the fatherland, a charge that could lead to a death penalty. We hear that the lawyers are mounting pressure on the Cameroon government for their liberation. Details in this report.
Nous sommes rendus à presque 40 jours.
Lawyers of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement political party say it is almost 40 days after the 26th February 2019 protest march of the party, where 203 party supporters and sympathizers were arrested between February 26 and February 28.
152 personnes ont été inculpées. Parmi ces infractions, la plus célèbre, l'hostilité contre la patrie. C'est une infraction qui est punissable de la peine de mort.
According to barrister Sylvain Soap, 37 out of 203 persons are facing flagrant charges at the Yaoundé Court of First Instance, and a ruling is expected on Monday, 11th of March 2019. 152 of them are being charged at the military court, among which is hostility against fatherland, which has a death penalty. The lawyers further stated that 130 of those tried at the military court are in prisons in Yaoundé, whereas none of them was issued a warrant of arrest. The CRM party lawyers say they introduced 146 files of habeas corpus, and 7 were rejected on Thursday, March the 7th, while 126 are still under examination by the military court.
Nous avions saisi les autorités.
On the condition of detainees, the CRM party said their repeated demands to treat sick of their militants who were arrested did not receive a favorable and timely response, and some 24 sick cases developed among militants and sympathizers who are currently being detained in Yaoundé. Barrister Hippolyte Meli revealed that several supporters have been refused food by the prison administrators since February.
Le rapport de la police.
The party also refuted reports that barrister Michelle Ndoki was trying to escape Cameroon when she got arrested in Idina West Coast Subdivision, southwest region of Cameroon, stating that Michelle Ndoki presented herself at an official checkpoint in Idina. The party described her arrest as kidnapping.
On doit se cagouler. Mais c'est ça qu'on appelle le kidnapping. Parce qu'ils ont fait exactement comme les Boko Haram.
Edgar Alemi-Bengo, former Minister of Transport and, of course, former Minister Delegate at the Presidency in charge of Defense of the Republic of Cameroon, preparing to spend his fourth night in the Kondengi maximum security prison in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, alongside three of his collaborators. They have been arrested and detained in connection to alleged embezzlement of public funds amounting to over 195 billion francs CFA within the context of purchase of military equipments from the Mac Force company. And the case is still going on. Meanwhile, the wife of the former statesman Bernadette Mebengo is yet to be questioned by the Yaoundé Special Criminal Court in connection to that information, notably concerning the charges leveled against her husband. In the meantime, some family properties have been seized by the authorities. And coming up, we take a look at what politicians have been saying concerning the Operation Sparrowhawk, the operation that was put in place to fight against corruption in the Republic of Cameroon. Politicians are criticizing the humiliation characterizing procedures of this operation. And of course, they were speaking yesterday on Equinoxe television within the context of the weekly program, Droit de Réponse. Innocent Azi.
Throwing Alain Edgar Mebengo, Cameroon's former defense minister, into Kondengi in a humiliating manner still animates debate platforms. Last Sunday on the broadcast program, Droit de Réponse on Equinoxe television, politicians revised the ugly manner the Operation Sparrowhawk has been applied on public fund swindlers.
Cette opération dite d'assainissement de la gestion des fonds publics.
To Alice Sadio, the operation crossed the red line by punishing instead of correcting its victims.
Une opération.
She notes in the past, government used it to humiliate corporates, whereas that is not how the state should apply the Sparrowhawk operation.
Or, ce n'est pas comme cela que la justice régalienne devrait fonctionner dans un état de droit.
Another politician, Emmanuel Pensy, lawyer and militant of the CPDM party, holds that the penal code does not tolerate humiliation of defaulters, something witnessed in several cases.
On a vu par exemple l'ancien ministre de l'Éducation nationale qu'on a allé mettre en prison à 70 ans et après qui est sorti le lendemain.
Emmanuel Pensy, however, appreciates the manner in which the former MINDEF boss was apprehended.
On a fait des perquisitions.
He says intelligence was applied, which is acceptable, and not imprisoning people without investigations.
C'est-à-dire qu'on ne mette pas immédiatement les gens en prison sans que des investigations soient faites.
Most of the funds swindled end up unrecovered because banks and financial institutions are not included during the Sparrowhawk operation.
L'argent pour aller en Europe ne circule pas dans les sacs Mbadjok. Ça transite
par les banques
et les institutions financières.
Emmanuel Pensy regrets the fact that expensive vehicles, suits in their numbers and close to 5 billion francs CFA were stocked in the residence of the former minister, while the Cameroonians suffer.
Les 448 costumes, on va faire quoi? Ça va être mangé par les mythes.
According to Ali Sadio, still, in a state where judicial power is politicized, justice can never be rendered with impartiality.
La justice ne peut pas être rendue de manière froide, de manière neutre et de manière impartiale.
Judicial power, which commentators and critics believe has been corrupted by a particular group of persons for their selfish interest.
And we talked to Barrister Ngo'o Limen, member of the Cameroon Bar Association and president of the Ngo'o Limen law firm here in the economic capital, Douala, who said the institution, notably the Special Criminal Court, charged with the responsibility of piloting the fight against corruption in the country through Operation Sparrowhawk, is functioning beyond expectation or below expectation. Take a listen to Barrister Ngo'o Limen.
That court was created in 2011. It aimed at fighting against embezzlement of public funds, corruption and misappropriation. And since then, we've seen that many suspects had been transferred or brought before that court, and some acquitted and others condemned. It is worth mentioning that We have our prisons full today because that court had gone ahead to condemn some of the embezzlers. They keep arresting, and the next day you hear that more people have been arrested. You see, and that court was created because they wanted to speed up the process judging these embezzlers and get money back if they could restitute, because that is one of the nouveautés in that court, that instead of you going to prison, you can actually refund, restitute what you embezzled. But to me, the court has not done so well, because if you look at what they have recovered, you cannot actually boast that they have recovered so much money compared to what has been stolen. And then it has not discouraged people from stealing. You know, since 2011, they have tried people, and you know, it's offenses. Those who embezzle more than 50 million and above are tried by that court. But you see, since that period of time, since 2011, you find that they condemn, they sentence embezzlers, but it does not dissuade. It doesn't dissuade the others from stealing. It is an insult when you look at the rate at which these people embezzle. The question is, first of all, how do they get such money? How do they get it? So, to me, it's a good initiative to have such a tribunal, such a court, but in the fulfillment of its purpose, I doubt if they have recovered anything. Right, they put in a lot of money to do our international arrests. They do to stop people from traveling. I think it goes faster than normal courts, though it's still slow, because I read somewhere that some accused persons had the matter adjourned for the 16th time. It is not number. When adjourned 15th, 16th time, it does not give the impression that the court moves as fast. So, if the offense is constituted, if the evidence is there, go ahead and try them. And instead of sending them to prison, Cameroonians don't want the prison. We want what has been stolen to be refunded to the state. And you see, what is very, very aching is the insult involved in it, the exaggeration involved in it, that one person will have 48 cars to do what with.
Barrister Julius Achu tells us how the Special Criminal Court functions. He spoke to Fomi Armstrong Sander, who compiled this report.
Cameroon's Special Criminal Court is a judicial institution that tries matters related to the embezzlement of state properties. It is based only in Yaoundé, but covers the entire national triangle, as explained by Barrister Julius Ashu.
Special Criminal Court in Cameroon is like equivalent to a court of appeal. It's possible for an appeal to be filed at the Supreme Court. So it is managed by a judge with judges. A president is presided by a president at the bench with judges, and a procureur general, unlike our normal courts of instances that has a procureur de la République or a state council.
The Special Criminal Code has to do with the application of Section 184 of Cameroon's Penal Code, which handles state properties.
It means anything that belongs to the state, money, tangible goods, real estates and whatever, everything that belongs to the state, that court has the jurisdiction to try those who commit offenses against properties of the state, of our country, of our nation. You know, the same law that was, I think it came into force in 2011 and modified in 2012. It tries matters that have to do with the value, the intrinsic value, the financial value of the matter has to be above 50 million.
Barrister Julius Ashu also explains that the court proceeds on handling matters just like in any other court in Cameroon.
They apply the criminal procedure code as well as our as well as our penal code. So the procedure is the same like in any other court. The only specialty is that it was created for a special reason. It usually starts with an investigation. They have what we call an examining magistrate, who some sort of carry out an investigation after what the judicial police officers must have done. But you see, whenever there's a complaint, either to the judicial police officers or to the state council or to the examining magistrate's office, an investigation is ordered. It starts from the judicial police officers and moves to the state council office and moves to the examining magistrate. At the end of the day, it's the examining magistrate that usually, more often than not, determines what is supposed to be done. Either you're remanded to custody while awaiting trial, or you're granted bail. But the same law says that on matters of embezzlement of state property, no bail can be granted. It can only be exceptionally done, maybe for health reasons, but it is stated that bail cannot be granted when it comes to issues of embezzlement of state.
Now we go up north. Some refugees in Makari subdivision have been empowered by the United Nations Office for Development and the Japanese government, and the refugees were trained and handed equipments that will help them create their own jobs or businesses. It's Manjik and Gabriel.
There were over 100 youths drawn from different walks of life in the Makari subdivision of the Logon and Shari division of the Far North region that benefited from the materials that were given out by the United Nations Office for Development in collaboration with the Japanese government. The beneficiaries, who are mostly from Makari, Fotokol and Logon Beni, are specialists in agriculture, animal farming and called box.
Moi j'ai choisi l'élevage.
I have chosen animal farming. By this act, I will crossbreed animals to multiply them, and through it, I will get the means to take care of myself and my family.
Après, je vais le vendre à des petits bons pour faire mes besoins avec.
Even though equipped, the problems of lack of energy will hinder the success of some beneficiaries. We are done with the training. I decided to operate in call box, which will help me in the future. Just that we have problem with electricity, so we shall only charge our phones using solar energy. For those who are specialized in tailoring, particularly the women, they believe that the training and equipment received will help them to support their husbands. If we already have a know-how on how to sew, we are going to support our husbands in several aspects in life. The major objective is to create temporal employment for 400 youths and empower 270 youths professionally in the Far North region hit by the refugee crisis and Boko Haram.
Out of Cameroon, 157 persons on board an Ethiopian Airlines plane have perished in a crash, and that was yesterday. The passenger plane, Boeing 737, crashed on its way from Addis Ababa to Ethiopia, and it is believed that there were 149 passengers and 8 crew members on board, and the Ethiopian Airlines also confirmed that search and rescue operations had been launched and that its officials were also checking for information on survivors and casualties. It added that staff will be sent to the accident scene, which is around Bishop 2, and it will do everything possible to assist the emergency services. And Ethiopian Airlines has grounded its Boeing 737 MAX 8 fleet until further notice, a day after the crash that killed at least 157 people on board one of its planes of the same type, and the 157 people were from 35 countries and including United Nations workers on their way to an environment conference being held in Nairobi. That's it for the first part of this newscast. Coming up next, Talking Point. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us in Talking Point. We are receiving a political science consultant and university lecturer, Cho Waters. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
What's your take on the fight against corruption in Cameroon today?
The issue is that since President Paul Biya has been on power since 1982, he has brought the policy of democracy, multipartism, and Operation Sparrowhawk. So my take on it is that we should give credit to this commission because so many politicians have criticized. He's saying that people should be sent to prison, but they want money to be refunded. You should understand here that Article 66 is what is a problematic declaration of assets in Cameroon, because ministers, before they were supposed to be appointed, or director generals or government officials before they were supposed to be appointed, supposed to have declared their asset. Let us know what you have, so that when you go to the government, we'll know what has been added. And then when President Paul Biya came into power in 1964, when he was at the Secretariat of the Presidency under the regime of Amadou Ahidjo, there was a lot of disorder. And so when he was appointed to the post of Director of Civil Cabinet and the Secretary General of the Presidency in 1967 and then 1970 to 1975, he became the Prime Minister of Cameroon. And then 1982, where he took power, he preached democracy, and immediately that that was done, he started bringing up these three policies, which Operation Sparrowhawk is one of the fundamental ones.
Over the years, this Operation Sparrowhawk has been in action, fighting against corruption in Cameroon. But what we notice is that the number of persons who have been sent to jail, who have been sent to the Kondengi maximum security prison, keeps increasing as the years go by. The number of government officials keep increasing, with the latest being the former Minister of Transport, former Minister Delegate at the Presidency in charge of Defense at Ngo'o Bengo, and 3 of his collaborators. And the figures embezzled are also increasing. We are today talking about 195 billion francs CFA. Where's the problem?
The problem lies in the issue of the mentality of Cameroonians, because I wanted to first of all bring in the some two indicators that are from the speech of His Excellency President Paul Biya in 1996. That's communal liberalism. Communal liberalism. It has two indicators: rigor and moralization. So the problem of that, what has halt this Operation Sparrowhawk, is that those the government have sent to the field are not given the right information, but at the end of the day, we have some kind of progress that is ongoing. Remember that they said that Mebengo was untouchable.
Increase in the number of figures being embezzled, increase in the number of persons. Is that the progress?
No, that the significance is positive. That the progress is in the commission. That the commission has been credited by the Cameroon government, and those that are arrested are people that they said that they can never be arrested, that they are untouchable. You can imagine here that Mebengo is not an Anglophone, he's not a Bamileke, he's not a Nordist, but he's a Bulu, and with a relationship with President Paul Biya, but he has been arrested, which means that President Paul Biya is a straight and strict somebody, which means everybody that goes above the law must be arrested and bring to justice, and we have to give credit to the Cameroon justice. It's the Cameroon justice that is working with the Operation Sparrowhawk and has arrested these people that are in Kondengi.
But
not President Paul Biya himself, but the justice.
But many critics think that some of these arrests and detention are politically motivated, that some of the people arrested because they set their eyes on power.
Exactly, that is where there is an amalgam. I don't want that like some international bodies have called them political prisoners. There are simply people in prison that have committed crimes that are both the penal code or maybe the civil code or the constitution, that the Cameroon justice have imprisoned them, and they are politicians. That is why we cannot link. There is no direct link. We cannot call them political prisoners. They have just committed crimes. And these crimes, the laws have been voted at the level of the National Assembly. And these people were there to accept, or they have representatives from different committees that accepted. So we cannot say that they are political prisoners.
And one of the questions that many people continue asking today is, why is it that over the years, the corruption seems to be persisting and even increasing? Cameroon remains today one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Is it that this Operation Sparrowhawk is not working?
The fact is that some Cameroonians don't want to accept the fact that Operation Sparrowhawk is working, because the fruits that are being yielded and the people that are being detained at the Kondengi Central Prison or other prisons in Cameroon, the main problem here is that we should make a link between corruption and the Operation Sparrowhawk. The issue is not the number of people that goes to the prison, but the issue is that the law has done its course. Remember that the state cannot do more than what it does not have.
Of course, now, apart from that, there is also the issue of recovering what was embezzled. According to some political observers, some legal minds, some members of the civil society, like you heard Barrister Kam was speaking earlier, he said that the court is functioning, the military, the Special Criminal Court and Operation Sparrowhawk, they are below capacity simply because what has been embezzled and what has been recovered, there is a big gap between the two.
Well, it is their own opinion, but I think that the laws of this country has permitted those concerned and those appointed by the president to do their work. And if the law says they should be incarcerated or maybe be on detention and let their properties be sold and given back to the state fund, let the law says it. If the law has not said it, then they have to operate within the jurisdiction and within the laws of the state. That is what, according to me. Those who are criticizing that the things supposed to have been sold and then given back to the state, if the laws permit them to do that, I believe that in the days ahead they are going to do it. But if the law does not permit, they will continue to go on arresting those people. Some other opinion leaders have said that if somebody who has a lot of fortune, riches, has gone to the prison and knows that after 10 years he will come back, he will still go and continue to enjoy. I believe that the legal luminaries, those who are working with the laws of the state or the experts, they are still going to see how in the days ahead, in the nearest future, before you go into the government, your goods need to be declared. And when you go to the government, we see what has been added to your goods before we can see, respecting Article 66 of the Constitution.
As you indicate, naturally other persons have also indicated that the implementation of Article 66 of the 1996 Constitution would have been a better instrument to fight against corruption instead of Operation Sparrowhawk and even the Special Criminal Court and so on.
They are just what we call, they are just assisting Operation Sparrowhawk in fighting corruption. They are just indicators or maybe elements or variables or what we call catalysts that are coming to galvanize to push forth Operation Sparrowhawk. But if we have Cameroonians of such nature that comes on the media or says to the public that it's because of Article 66 that is putting the movement or maybe the capacity or the functioning of Operations Sparrowhawk in difficulties, I think that they don't want that the growth of this country should come to limelight.
But the implementation of that article...
The article is implementing. It is on process. The issue is that there are people that are refusing. It has
not yet been promulgated into law.
It has not yet been promulgated into the law, but the practice is going on.
Who declared the property? Which state official declared his or her property up to now?
I'm not saying that there is somebody who has already declared. When a law is voted, remember that the one on the Senate came in 2013, but they were voted in 1996.
Okay, the process is in course.
The process is in course. And very soon, the ministers that are in government now, they have to take note. If there is everybody who has touched a public goods, or maybe something that belongs to the state, very soon they will take them down. There's lists that are going to be produced in the days ahead. And those who are in government now, they should start panicking because they are going to... 60% of Cameroonians, can you imagine, are very poor, but these people have billions in their houses. I believe that is a time that we should even give confidence to this regime in place in fighting corruption.
So the arrest of Minister Mbengo, former minister, is a proof that the President of the Republic is a man of rigor. Is that?
He's a man of rigor and moralization, which I come back to his speech of 1996, communal liberalism. He is a straightforward man, simple, and acts with them slowly but surely.
So there's nobody who is untouchable?
Not that there is nobody who is untouchable. That's the mindset of Cameroonians on the street. Mbengo, I can see newspapers have presented so many images about Mbengo. Why? The reason I told you is because he has a relationship with the head of state, and people have said that Mbengo could not go to prison because he belongs to the head of state. Remember that it is the Cameroon justice that is sending Mbengo to prison and not Mr. Paul Biya. Let's make a difference between personality and then the person. It is the justice of Cameroon and not Mr. Biya who is sending him to prison. All right. Not that he's untouchable. You cannot go above the law. Even the constitution is above the president. So even the president goes against the constitution, he will also be arrested.
And the question is, if the constitution is above the president, why is it that up to today Article 66 of that constitution is not implemented, is not promulgated into law?
That is why there is what we call application of law on space and on time. So many laws were amended before up to date. Some are still ongoing process. And because of the morality that these ministers have given or these government officials have given to us by embezzling, that is why they have reinforced now people into the field to work for these articles that people are complaining every day.
All right, you're a political science consultant. Before we go, your take on the involvement or the statements made recently by the United States official and an official of the European Union concerning the arrest and detention of Professor Maurice Kamto and of course the Anglophone crisis.
Good. I want to make it very clear. We can welcome his opinion, the Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs. But there is a problem of complexity. Complexity in what? The context of the Cameroon judicial system and belonging of that of the diplomatic ties between UN and Cameroon. The communication which I'm using for now is that of the Minister of Communication. The communique that he produced, René Mario Sadi, the government reacted through his spokesman. And it's from that spokesman that all of us Cameroonians, you and I, have learned that Professor Maurice Kamto is not a political prisoner. He committed crimes of hostility, insurrection, rebellion, destruction of public goods, home and abroad, and he is on detention awaiting trials to see whether what justice will render its course at the end of the day. But and the Cameroon government is doing its best to see how it can render justice to Professor Maurice Kamto. Not that what the diplomat from the UN said is going to be implemented or taken into course. We have to respect the laws of the Republic, and the Minister of Communication has said it. So what he has said is what is for now.
But the party, as well as other politicians and civil society leaders and even the international community, because when we look at the cause for his liberation, are simply saying that all those allegations are not founded.
That is why we said, why is it that Professor Maurice Kamto did not come out with this issue before election? He came out after election. We mean that there is a hidden agenda, and there are exogenous and endogenous forces. And exogenous forces are these diplomats putting pressure on Cameroon, which they cannot change the laws of the Republic. And endogenous forces are people who are conniving with the parties to destabilize the regime of President Paul Biya in place for now.
Cho Walters, political consultant and university lecturer, thanks for coming.
It's my pleasure.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today.